Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to No Cameras in the Kitchen. We here where we have the honest conversations, real stories, and meaningful discussions that matter. We're so glad you're here. While everyone joins us, let us know where you're watching from in the comments, and we'll get started in just a few minutes.
And we are eating also.
And we'll get started in just a few minutes.
Oh, so that's the recording.
Are you testing it?
You notice on Zoom it always tells you that this is being recorded. If you don't want to be recorded, check out now.
Are you testing it? Put that on mute, huh?
It's picking up everything.
That's just gonna be feedback. You gonna turn that down? Put that on.
I'm like, what is this?
Hi, everybody. I can keep y'all busy.
What were you saying about follow-up when I was saying that sometimes?
So if during the course of either live somebody asks a question, you can always look at the live and then answer it on.
Hello, hello, hello. We're going to do some brief introductions. First, we're going to start off with Miss Dawn.
Oh, we're gonna start with Lynn?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Georgia Dawn Banks. I go by Dawn. I am currently working with Whip Appeal, which is my co-host. This is her salon, and I work in here with her. So I'm House Sprays, working under Whip Appeal. We've been together for almost a year now. We are very excited to come up with this podcast together called No Cameras in the Kitchen. We were live earlier. I was not available, so Miss Angela was by herself, unfortunately, but she held it down, and I encourage you guys to go look at our earlier podcast, which covers health and issues with people of color and how we deal with our health and healthcare system in the United States. So, I'm not going to go too deep into it. I'm the braider of the salon. I've been braiding for about 40-something years, not to tell my age, but yeah, and I love working here and everything that we do. We have a lot of good stuff to come, and without further ado, let me move on to introduce my co-host.
I'm Angela S. Johnson. I go by AJ. I own Whip Appeal Hair and More, and a lot of other things, because I'm also a cosmetologist. I'm also a trichologist and a certified life and health coach as well. I also have my product line, and I've been doing hair since 84. I'm not going to tell you how old I am.
Y'all some old heads.
And proud.
Because I'm getting close to early retirement.
I've been through early
I'm not going to stop doing hair, but I mean early retirement from my other job. But with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to our guest and have her introduce herself.
Hi, my name is T.A. Taylor Hunt. I know that's a mouthful. My first name is just initials, capital T period, capital A period, T.A. I am an attorney. I've been practicing for 25 years, and my focus is on helping our community. My focus is on helping primarily to educate our community about the law and how it impacts them before they have an issue. I'm also a 25-and-a-half-year retired Air Force officer. Yeah, so that makes me kind of an old head as well, for sure. But everything I do is centered around education and helping our community, and I hope to be able to share that information with you today in a way that's meaningful and helpful for your family.
Thank you. Now moving on, we're going to do our opening. We're going to ask some questions, and she's going to answer the questions for you. And if you have any questions, just leave them in there, and me and Don will answer them in the answer them. But otherwise, we're going to just keep moving. When people hear trust fund, the picture rich kids or old money. Is that really what a trust fund is?
That's a really good question, because that's a misunderstanding for most people. First of all, a trust is separate from a trust fund. A trust is the document that we create to tell what our wishes are and what we would like to happen when we pass away. The trust fund is actually an account set up where you have transferred assets, things that you own, you have transferred them into an active account that is being managed. Most people who start with a trust do not actually have...
Yeah, I'll do that. My apologies.
That was funny. Most people who start with a trust don't actually have the account, the trust fund. But the misunderstanding is because we hear about trust fund babies, we hear about celebrities who have trust, but we also hear about celebrities who didn't plan at all and don't have anything in place. So hopefully today we can continue to dispel some of those myths and talk to you about how a trust can be beneficial for many reasons, and in particular within our community.
Okay, so if you have any questions and you're on TikTok, Miss Dawn is going to try to answer them the best she can.
Yeah.
Because we're over here doing other stuff.
If we don't answer your question, just know that that's why we're recording live. We can go back and answer some questions that you might have.
Okay. Can regular people working everyday jobs, have a trust fund too? And what's the biggest thing people get wrong about trust?
Primarily, people tend to think that you can't have a trust unless you have a lot of money. Can't have a trust unless you're wealthy. But a trust, I like to think of it, it's like a bucket. If you think about, or let's just say a gift box. It's a gift box, but there's nothing inside it. But once you begin to put things, so it's an empty bucket, but when you begin to put things inside of that box, then you're actually creating the gift. So for everyday people, let's say you don't even have a lot of money right now, but you do have minor children, or you do have a special needs person in your family, and you do have a blended family, then those are really critical reasons why a trust might be beneficial, because some of the other documents that we talk about, they won't extend the level of care that's needed for those individuals. If you have a minor child, they're going to need care and provisions for their education for years down the road. And you really can't, you can do it within other estate documents, but the trust is the best vehicle. And in particular for an individual who has special needs. because we have to be very careful about how you distribute assets to someone with special needs because of the potential impact on their public benefits. You also, let's be honest, have to consider the impact of distributing assets to a family member who may be incarcerated. If you distribute funds to someone who's incarcerated, that money is going to be taken by the state for restitution, which is not what you intended. Now that's something where I really know what I speak about because I have a son who's incarcerated. I mean, I knew it before he got incarcerated. Maybe he got incarcerated to test me, but I don't know.
That part.
So I have created some legal wellness education seminars specifically for families of incarcerated members, because we need to know some things about how we deal with our incarcerated community in a way that can still be supportive and maybe lay some plans for being able to provide assistance when they are released. And most of us don't know that. It's not our fault. We don't know these things because no one ever shares the information. And that's the primary reason why we run into difficulty, because we don't have access to the information. So even without current funds, it's necessary in those primary areas: minor children, special needs person, incarcerated individual, or you have long-term plans for investments you want to make in education, in community organizations, and charities and other nonprofits.
Can I ask a question real quick? It kind of goes down that rabbit hole. So, about people having assets to even distribute, if we even want to touch on that just a little bit, because there are ways to gain assets through what you're talking about also, right? Because most people that I know, and even including myself, I can only talk on my own behalf, I don't really have a lot of assets right now. I'm still gaining that, but I'm at the bottom, still working my way up. So why would I put the carriage before the horse, and develop a trust when I don't really have 2 pennies to put in that trust right now?
No, that's a good question. That's also one of the reasons why people just say, that's not for me.
Right.
I'm not even going to consider that. She's not talking to me. There's 2 sides to that. I would like you to start thinking about what you would want to do before you have it. First you see it and you believe it. I would also like you to realize that, as you said very smartly, there are other vehicles. When I do presentations like to single parents, and they're like, what am I going to do? You can do what many others do, and you can actually fund your trust with a life insurance policy, which is what many of them do. Okay?
Yeah, I hope somebody's taking notes.
So when you think about it, first of all, I want to make sure I explain every term. When I say fund the trust, I mean now we're putting something in the box. Okay? Mm-hmm. But we're not putting it in presently. We have a life insurance policy, and generally where you have your beneficiaries, in this case, the trust would be your beneficiary. So when something happened to you, the life insurance proceeds, instead of going to an individual, would go into the trust bucket. And that would be the foundation if that's all that you had at that moment. But let's say, in the case of a single parent or someone beginning, that's a start. That's a floor, because funds and other assets that you put in the bucket, they will be invested. So it might not be a huge life insurance policy, but it can be invested, and so it can grow over time.
Okay.
And so you can begin that way. So first, I'd like people to think about what they would like to see, how they would like to structure things for their families, and then look at what vehicles are possible when we don't have the 2 pennies. Okay? And life insurance is one of the primary vehicles that people use. Now, I have to caution with life insurance, the thing I detest, there's many things I detest in terms of how they prey upon people's emotions. You see the commercials about life insurance and the children with the tears and all of that.
The AIs.
That creates more problems than you can possibly believe, because that tells people, I need to make my children the beneficiary. That's the absolute worst thing you can do, because minors can't enter into contracts. So if you have your child, or it doesn't have to be your child, a minor, on a life insurance policy, when you pass, the life insurance company is not going to pay out. They can't, by law, distribute funds to a minor. Which means what? It means you're going to have to go to court. And your estate is going to have to get someone to manage it, which wouldn't by itself be a bad thing, except now you're going to be under court monitoring. And the court's going to want to know what you're doing with the money over this period of time. Okay. And with minors, they're going to want to know until the child is 18.
And this, to be clear, this is if you start a trust and you have minors that are supposed to be recipients or beneficiaries of that trust, but they're minors.
No, this is not even having a trust. This is the big mistake. It's just life insurance policies that are made out to minor children as the beneficiary.
Okay.
Sometimes they have an adult, like they'll have somebody over them in the life insurance that says, in case these ones pass away, they'll usually have it. But now people aren't putting that other person, and it's just straight to kids.
It's going to kids, and that's just, it can't happen. On paper, you think it's going to kids, but it just can't. Not without the court interceding and appointing someone, because the life insurance companies want to protect themselves, right? And so they're not about to distribute it. Where I have seen that cause the most damage is where the two parents, they're no longer together. Mom dies, dad gets the kids, but she made the kids the beneficiary and left it that way. So the father had to go to court to get appointed as the guardian, trustee of the life insurance proceeds to be able to use the money for his kids. And that's not, even though they were separated, that's not what you intend. Right. Because you want your children to be taken care of. That's why you bought the life insurance policy. So that is a huge problem, and that's a huge problem in our community when we have life insurance and we have minor children as the beneficiary.
So couldn't they so if he goes to court, couldn't he have them put their money into a trust?
Well, what he has to do is he has to set up a special account. And these accounts are authorized by the court, monitored by the court. So he won't have the authority to create a trust, because remember, he doesn't really have control over the money as he would have had if she had done it another way.
So if not, worst case scenario, that child will have to wait till they're 18 to receive that money. It's just going to be sitting somewhere.
No. The father can use it, but they'll be using it under court guidance.
Okay.
They have to report to the court. Some states every 6 months, some states every year, about what they've done with the funds. So the child can be receiving it. The child would get at 18 whatever amount was left in the account. So you can see how that immediately creates a problem that's not what you intended.
Right.
And so, and just imagine if that's the case with a child, how is that with a person with special needs?
Right.
See, if you have a child with special needs and you do that, then yes, the court is going to be monitoring it, but you've also opened it up to the public benefits monitors. So where's the impact on Medicaid? Because now you're saying the special needs person has some assets.
Yep.
And those assets, even low, can take you off of Medicaid. Well, there's not enough life insurance to substitute for your Medicaid.
Right.
You know, that's where we make a mistake. You think even with something as odd as personal injury claim. And so, you know, you're on TV, and I'm not going to use their names, but so-and-so got me this amount of money. Okay.
Yep.
So they got you this amount of money, but if so-and-so didn't really know what they were doing and didn't coordinate that and get Medicaid's approval, then you have now got this money, which you have to report, and two things are going to happen. One, Medicaid can require payment for the amount they've spent on you under Medicaid, which is a lot, or Medicaid will simply say you're no longer eligible for Medicaid. Now, most of these settlements, they are nowhere close to substituting, not just for your Medicaid, they're nowhere close. What about your subsidized housing? You're living in subsidized housing.
Yeah.
Right? And you're managing. But now you got too much income. So you can't live in subsidized housing, and you don't have health insurance.
So can I ask, is there, without it being illegal, is there a way around that situation legally?
Yes, yes, there is.
There is.
If an attorney, well, I'm not going to say a way around it. The law provides
lawyer's word
for options. And so an attorney is supposed to, first of all, notify, no, let me back up. An attorney is supposed to ask you enough questions during intake to understand that you are on public benefits. That needs to be a basic question. If you're talking to an attorney and they didn't ask you that, you need to go to somebody else, because they need to know what you currently have so that they understand how to avoid putting you at risk. And so then our responsibility is to immediately notify Medicaid that you have a pending personal injury claim. And then when it comes time for payout, Medicaid will negotiate with the attorney as to how much they'll accept as a sort of a, it's not really a down payment, but it's a negotiated settlement. And so they can actually agree to, oh, we'll take this amount. Medicaid puts that in writing. The lawyer has that, you have that, and that is the way to safeguard yourself when you are dealing with something like a personal injury claim.
Okay.
And I know that isn't, the focus,
Right.
but see, this is the interlocking. It is all intersected with this, because if we lose money from a personal injury claim, then how are we going to have money to put into a trust, or to get a life insurance policy, or to even think about generational wealth? See, there are so many things that impact our ability to even lift our eyes to focus on that. So no, those are good things, because that's life.
Yep.
And what the purpose of legal wellness, remember, is how the laws impacts your life, you and your family's life now, not 50 years down the road. First, you got to get through now.
Right.
And so something as simple as life insurance policies being given, having the wrong beneficiary, personal injury settlement, which you might not be able to avoid if you have, a major car accident and it's, not your fault, or even if it is your fault. I mean, in this state, 3 out of 5 drivers on the road don't even have insurance. So you're very likely to get hit, as we did, by someone who has no insurance. Which I'm going to talk to later about what we need to do to protect ourselves against those people who don't have insurance, that we're not doing in our insurance because we're thinking we're saving a penny.
Yeah.
But we're not saving a penny. We are risking a great deal by listening to an agent say, all you need is this.
Liability.
And it's so not true, you know. It's so absolutely not true. So, no, it's all together.
So what happens to everything I've worked for if I pass away tomorrow and haven't put anything in writing?
Okay. I love this question because when I'm doing an in-person presentation, I always bring with me one of my Colorado statutes, Colorado legal books, that you have to pay a pretty penny for every year because, you know, something changes every year.
Like taxes?
Right. And so I asked the room, how many of you believe in God? The majority of people raise their hand. And I say, okay, how many of you believe God when he said that God could come in an instant? They raise their hand. So I'm like, okay, so if you believe that God can come in an instant, how many of you have written your plan down? Then it's very few. So do you believe God can come in an instant, or do you believe he's going to come on your time? And so I say, if you don't have a plan, this red book right here, Colorado's got a plan for you. Every state has a plan for people who don't plan. So if you...
That's me right now.
If you plan, then you're a state, and an estate is simply everything that you have at the moment you die. That's all. Could be a big estate, can be a little estate. All your assets, all your liabilities, that's what makes up your estate.
Thank you.
So if you have an estate, then you're going to go through probate, and you're going to be following certain rules because you've made up your document, so it's going to go the way you've set out. If you don't have an estate, then it's going to go through a process we call intestacy, which means it's still going to go through the process, but now it's going to go according to what Colorado said. And that's not necessarily what you say. Especially thinking of our community, how many of us live in or know people who live with blended families?
A lot.
We have taken in children from relatives, from neighbors. That's who we are. The challenge is you've taken this child in and you've treated this child as your own because they are your own, but legally they're not. And so if you're going to go through intestacy because you didn't make a plan, the law is not going to recognize that child at all. So when they go to make the distributions, line up who's supposed to be next in line, because we actually have to make the chart. When we do that, those blended children, they're not on the list because they're not biologic children. They are not, and so they are discarded, which is not at all what your intention was, obviously, because you've raised this child as your own. But if you do an estate plan, when I do those, I name those children, because you have to define what children means. So let's say I have 2 kids, and I say when I use the word children, I'm referring to these 2 kids. And so that's all the law is going to consider. But if I say I'm referring to these 2 and the following named children, and now when I've heard this will says children, it refers to all of them. So you in effect put them back. You put them in where the law will leave them out. So that's one major impact for children. Then there's other impacts for for your business, So
I have a question then. What is the cost of estate planning? Because to my knowledge, it's costly. Can I chat GPT it or
Claude or
Gemini or can I hack? Is there a hack?
I don't think there's a problem in getting information. Okay, because what we're doing here is an educational seminar, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I did forget to do my little disclaimer. This is an educational seminar. You do not get to leave this and think you have an attorney, because you don't.
Right.
Because
It's just
you
picking your
have to
brain to the
have
19th hour.
you have to have a signed written agreement between the attorney's office, me and you, before that. But my voicemail message, if you were to ever call my number, is really long, because that's what it has to say. Because I'm fine with you leaving me a message. We really appreciate your call and want to be of service to you. However, you do not have a client-attorney relationship until such time as there is blah, blah, blah. Why do I have to do it that way? Because people have called, left you a message, and then gone to court for something. And when the judge says, do you have a lawyer? They say, I'm waiting for her to call me back. But they never talk to me. And I understand, because it's hard. So you can go to those systems and ask questions like, how would this work? Right now, I haven't seen any that I would trust to actually create the documents, because remember, you're asking them questions. They may come back and ask you some, but they're not sitting down with you. They don't know the rest of the story. Because people who come in to talk to you, they don't know the rest of the story. You have to ask probing questions. It's just like the work you all do. You have to ask a person, and what they've been doing with their hair. You give comments based on what you can now see, the condition of their hair, which is different from when you talk to them on the phone, right?
Right.
So it's the same thing. I can pick up on something when I'm actually talking to you, or we get more information. So I'm not adverse to you going there to get information. And now to the costly part. I think we believe that it costs more than it does. And then there's the piece of pay me now or pay me later. So what's the cost if you don't pay for a decent estate plan, and then you pass away and your family pays? So you have to weigh that out. But I do think you can gather information. You just have to be sure that you are clear on what you're asking and why. And that's another section in here I was going to talk about. Before you talk to anyone, you need to sit down. When I used to teach goal setting, I would tell people they need to devote an hour minimum to just do brainstorming. You remember when we did brainstorming sessions? You just put everything down on paper. It doesn't have to make sense. It's not in order. Just everything you're thinking that you could ever do. And then from that, you will narrow and choose. In the same way, you have to do a brainstorming with your goals. What do you want? Do you want money to be left to a school? Do you have blended family to take care of? You have to get it all out, so that you know what you're doing, or at least what your concerns are, before you go speak to someone. And then we have to understand, what is estate planning? When we say, do you have an estate plan? Most people don't even know what we're talking about.
Right.
So if I'm going to say, do we have a basic estate plan? And does everyone need one? Yes. There is a basic estate plan, and yes, everyone who is 18 or older needs some documentation. People don't think their children do. Oh, they're grown, but I can take care of everything. No, you can't, because they're adults. You don't get to speak for them anymore.
After 18.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
they're legal. We learned that the hard way, most of us. When you want to get some information and you can't get it. Doctors don't have to talk to you. There's regulations against that. And so you can say, well, they don't have anything. Yeah, most of them have a car, or they have an apartment lease. Those things have to be dealt with, and you can't deal with them because they don't have any documents.
They're 18.
You see, they don't have any documents. And go ahead.
So because I want to just reiterate the estate planning, and I'm thinking about myself now. I don't know if someone might be in my shoes,
Okay.
but cost-wise, because I'm crunching numbers in my head, and I know we have to move on to ask questions, so I just want to know some numbers, like let's be being realistic and grounded about it. My mom put like $1,000 into her estate planning. I don't want to put $1,000 into my estate planning, but so I mean, if we're crunching numbers, can you be like, well, if you want to do something good, it'll be 600 or something like that. If you want a good, really,
I think if you want the basic plan, well, let's say what a basic plan is. The first two documents are powers of attorney. Okay? You need to have a financial power of attorney, and you need to have a medical power of attorney. Those are critical, and that's what's critical for our young adults. That's how you're going to be able to help them. Okay? So the financial powers of attorney, you will hear people say, well, I have her power of attorney. That's not really how you address it. You are appointed as someone's agent under the power of attorney. So you're their agent. And you choose a primary person who can speak for you if you can't speak for yourself. And then my military training, you must have a backup because things happen. So you have a primary and an alternate who can take care of your finances if something happened to you. Because if you're in the hospital and you don't pay your bills, do you think Chase cares?
No.
Absolutely not. And they will keep moving the process along to non-payment, and you'll be looking at some foreclosure paperwork. Okay? So a financial power of attorney is necessary for that, and a medical power of attorney, the same. Who can speak for you when talking to the doctor? Who do you want to be able to do that? All right? So that's your medical power of attorney. It speaks to how you feel about being given drugs that could be habit forming. You know, those type things. The third piece of those, what we generally call advanced directives, so you'll hear that term, include your living will. Now your living will is different from your medical power of attorney. Some attorneys, when we do them, we put them together, but they are different documents. Your living will speaks to what you think about end of life issues. Your medical power of attorney is for now, because most of us are going to have a disability at some point in our life before we die. So that's the medical power of attorney, and that's why it's so necessary. The living will speaks to how do I feel when it's been determined that I'm going to be on life support. Do I want nutritional support? Do I want pain relief? Or do I want nothing? And people get to choose. And sometimes we don't like their choices, but they're choices. So those are like three basic documents. After that, for the basic estate plan comes a will. A will is designating who you want to receive your property. Some people say, well, I don't care, you know, it can just go to my family. Well, who's your family? Who's to get it? You know, you have paintings, you have, you know, physical assets. Who's to get it? We'll talk about houses separately. But the one thing for people who say they don't need a will, if you have minor children, the will is the only place where you can appoint a guardian
over your
for
kids.
your child. Absolutely. Can't do it in any other document. You can't do it in a trust. You can provide for them financially and all, and the instructions in the trust for how you want someone to spend the money. But that will is critical for appointing a guardian. And now you say, well, I know so-and-so is going to take care of them. But back to blended families. If that child has a biological parent elsewhere, the biological parent, unless there was evidence of abuse or something, that biological parent is going to have first rights to the physical guardianship of that child. That may not be at all what you want.
Right.
And so you can't technically avoid it, but there are legal ways to facilitate what you may want. For example, if you have the trust, the money is going somewhere else. This is another reason for not making children beneficiaries. The money is going to the trusted person that you really wanted to have the child. And so most of these non-involved biological parents, be they male or female, they're not really going to hang around much, in my experience, when they don't have control of the money. You see? That's why insurance money gets spent up so fast, because people have it in their hands and they can do what they want with it. But if they don't have the money, then next thing you know, that child is being dropped off with auntie. You see? But that requires planning, and it requires you to first think about your circumstances. Okay, so that will, if I can say one thing, you've got to use a will to appoint a guardian for a minor child. And then you have to think about any possessions, any assets that you're leaving for that child. How do you want them separated, if at all, from the control of the biological parent? And maybe it's all good and you don't want it separated. Most people do want it separated. They don't want that person to have that kind of control. Okay? So if you did nothing, don't even include a trust in a basic estate plan, because it's not included. It's those 3 advance directives: financial power of attorney, medical power of attorney, living will, and a will. And you can throw in disposition of last remains. This is where we do have fights in our community. What do you want to happen to your body? Do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated?
Most people are not really.
Some people don't say,
I want to be buried. I want to be buried above ground in glass, in a crypt, so my kids can come look at me.
Right, and you want your
and I want my messy bun. I said I want my
She want her casket to be glass, so everybody can look at her.
If you don't have this written in this last document, the disposition of last remains,
then guess what?
You got a problem. Because
and your youngest son, you better hope he don't.
And there's the thing, because all of your children don't have, or decision makers, they don't have the same view. Okay, they just don't. And even in our community, more and more people are being cremated than ever.
Right.
One, because of the cost of funerals, and 2, we are just running out of space. We are literally mortuary cemeteries are running out of space in this country for above ground memorials.
Wow.
So you have to be clear what you want. Do you want to donate your organs? That has to be in there, because organ donation has to happen really quickly after you pass. I've had some clients who donated their body to science. UCH takes care of all that. You don't have to be concerned. There's no cost or anything.
Wow.
But some people are very specific. They want to be cremated, and this is what they want to happen to their ashes. And some people don't care. They just say whatever this person decides, okay? It's important, we're talking about generations, to know whether someone was a veteran, especially our elders, to know whether they were in the military, because then that gives them a space at a national cemetery anywhere in the country, wherever they may move, that they don't have to pay for. But we have to understand, it doesn't mean everything is free. The space is free. You don't have to pay for that. But if you want cremation, you have to pay for that. The military doesn't cover any of that. They just cover your burial in a national cemetery. Now, if one spouse was in the military and they get buried at a national cemetery, the other spouse can be buried also at a national cemetery, even if they weren't in the
But just spouses, not the
in
kids.
the military. The only provision for children is if it was a special needs child who was dependent upon that parent.
Okay.
Then there is that exception. But many times we're not asking the question. This is when I'm back to the brainstorming, putting everything down. We don't even know anymore if this person was in Vietnam because they don't talk about it.
Right.
Let alone our more senior elders. So now I know I've explained all that, and I still haven't said a dime about the money. I'm illustrating that because I do think that you can probably navigate the creation of the powers of attorney, because they tend to be basic unless you have some unique. So I'm not going to identify any AI, but I do think an intelligent person can do enough self-education to create those documents. However, you have to be certain you understand the legal requirements. And and many of the documents is not always just notarizing. People think that a notary makes something legal. It doesn't.
You can have witnesses.
A notary just means that you showed some ID that you're that person. Notaries don't read the documents.
I'm a notary and I don't.
I have people, you're not even supposed to. I have people all the time who say, I've got this contract and it was notarized, like that makes it legal. That doesn't make it legal at all. It just doesn't. They're just confirming the signature. Okay? So some documents require witnesses and a notary, and some just require your signature. Like the disposition of last remains, that just requires your signature. It doesn't require anything else. Your medical power of attorney, it requires witnesses, and if a person is in a nursing home or receiving care from home health aid, they cannot be the witnesses. You see? And family members can't be the witnesses. So you could have a good document, but it's not a good document because you have improper witnesses.
So my sister can't sign it?
No.
Nope.
No. And the reason is you don't want there to be the appearance of collusion. Did she take advantage of you?
Okay.
That's the reason. It's the same reason why we don't want nursing home staff or doctors serving as the witnesses. Did they have some other interests? And so a home health aide, which is where we do detect quite a bit of fraud, can't be the witnesses because was there coercion? Because for sure, if you do that on your will and your property doesn't go the way other family members think, they are going to sue and they're going to claim coercion by that home health worker who was with you all the time, and they persuaded you. Then it just goes. And in the meantime, in that mess, that's when property is lost. That is when we have lost homes. Why? Because who's paying the mortgage?
Yeah.
Who's paying the taxes? And there are people every day sitting out there. Now they don't have to have real people. They can just use the algorithms searching for property that has delinquent taxes.
That's me. I'm one of the people.
And then they wait until it's too late.
Yep.
You don't know anything about it. Now, Philly, where I'm from, and I just lost my mom last year, and I always monitored mother's property, so I wasn't having it. But some states, and Pennsylvania was one, they put in additional requirements to prevent that from happening to elders. You know, if there's some kind of document that comes in for changing the title, they have another step that someone's actually going to connect with someone and make sure that was true. But I have had people lose generational property over failure to pay the taxes, which when we get to that part is why there are certain things you need to do if we're going to talk about protecting that property. Some of it's just simple. Some of it you don't really think about, which is why we have to spend time. Some of us spend more time planning our next cruise than we spend.
You better not. You better not.
She talking about you?
Yeah, I said she cut her eyes over here. You know, I'm going on a cruise.
But some of us spend more time planning our cruise, making sure we got the fan, than we do planning for what is supposed to happen when we pass away.
We listen, we don't judge. I didn't say
did
I forget to say that at the beginning of this?
And by the way, we're perhaps using funds for some things. For example, it could be a cruise.
I have never been on a boat.
Or it could be a shopping spree. Or you could be, I don't want to use that term because we're in, I don't know who's listening, but you can use, first word is brand, and you fill in the blank for the second word. Okay? And it's the oldest profession in the world. So you may be wearing enough money to have started that investment account to be able to have something. I'm just
nothing.
I'm glad I'm sitting on the end and not in the middle. That's all I'm saying.
Sweat everything.
Okay.
We telling it. I don't care.
But this is real. This is real, and this is how we're living. In if we're going to reach our objectives,
It's real.
some of this is going to have to change.
Yeah,
if we're
that's
serious,
why we have you on, so we can address these real situations.
If we're serious, we're going to have to do something different.
I'm fasting on the shoe game. I'm fasting.
Are you? That's good.
Yes.
That's good because most of us have enough shoes that we could wear a different pair of shoes every day
Of the year?
without repeating. That's exactly right. Of the year. No, months. I mean, I literally know people who have an entire room, and it's not just sneakerheads. Okay?
I'm not.
It's not. Okay, so you're not going to cut your eyes this way.
I'm not.
Okay.
She's cutting them at me.
Yeah, I know.
You're hitting on everything you're supposed to be hitting on right now.
Okay. But I mean, if you sometimes stand, just take a minute when you sit down to do your planning, and look at that closet full of shoes. See, that's what we don't want to do. We don't want to face the hard facts, because if we look at that will tell you straight away why you don't have any money to invest, why you don't have an emergency fund.
I'm investing.
And then there's a question of, are you investing as much as you possibly could be while you can? Most of us are not even getting the full match from employers
Nope, not no
who
more.
offer 401ks because we're not putting in, so we're leaving free money on the table.
Yeah,
Period.
but that dynamic is changing anyway.
Yeah,
They're going
no,
to
it is.
1099s.
Yeah,
If a
it is
company could
changing
do a
the contracting. If they
1099
can
for
get away with giving you without giving you a 401k, they are.
No, we're talking.
7% per check. So
Well, so that sounds like a really good percentage that you're putting in.
I see my check not that big.
But even when you're self-employed, you can have a self-directed. It's a self-employment.
Yeah.
And you can have your own equivalent of one. You have to create that. But if you don't create that, then you're working your business and you're working really, really hard, but you're not setting aside anything for the future. For when you can't work or when you just don't want to work anymore. You're not making any kind of provision for that. And that takes you back to potentially cruise ships, shoe closets, clothes closets. I mean, what led to the Target boycott besides them telling lies? we realize we spent $12 trillion there. We are the biggest consumers
Yeah, we are. I agree.
in retail. If we just took 1% of that money, we could turn our communities upside down. But we are not doing that. We are giving our money.
Spending.
We are the most conspicuous consumers of any other ethnic group in this country.
Yeah, we are.
And I'm guilty of that because I love Target. And I be trying not to shop there because I don't do Walmart.
No, I won't go into Target. I haven't gone in there since then, and I don't do Walmart either because they pulled back as well.
Yeah, I haven't, but Amazon is my culprit.
Yeah,
and they're just as bad.
Yes.
Yeah, Amazon is just as bad. Some people rationalize Amazon because you're not actually shopping from him. You're shopping with independent businesses
Right.
who are located there. And you can search Amazon for black-owned businesses.
Third-party
right.
manufacturers.
So you can do that.
Okay.
So there are ways to navigate that one that are easier than, like my goddaughter used to say, the red dot store.
Yeah, there's a housing.
You know.
There's a housing warehouse. That's all there is. The housing.
That's all. So
That's
there's
good.
lots of
That's why.
businesses that are there that we can support. You know, so that is one way to work that. Otherwise, no. But again, we have the money. We have the means. It's just going somewhere else. And that's
is.
just the truth. And we...
Yeah. So with that being said, let's say I'm a parent with a house, and I have little money in the bank. I have some life insurance. Why should I even care about a trust?
do you have children?
Grown.
Okay, so you have a house, and when you have a home, you have to consider, what do you want to happen to the home? Everything is about, what do you want to happen when you're gone? What are your expectations? Do you want the house to just be sold and the proceeds divided amongst your kids? Then you don't need a trust to do that.
No.
Do you want the house to be sold and the money go into a trust to help your grandchildren? That's a different issue. You see? But if you don't,
I got a lot of them.
and there's a decision of, do you feel like you want to leave something in place that's going to help your grandchildren? If you don't, then you can just have the property sold and the proceeds divided amongst your grown children. You
It's
can do
better
it
to
that
sell
way.
it if you still have a mortgage, because you could still lose that house. Then it'd be for, what did you hold on to the house for? If you give it to some kids that get it.
Well, I pay for insurance to pay the house off. Mortgage insurance. So if they...
But mortgage insurance, a lot of people do that. They pay for mortgage insurance so that in the event they pass away, the mortgage, the primary mortgage on the home, is paid off. A couple of cautions. You can have your primary mortgage and that would be paid off. Many people also have a HELOC. Remember? The home improvement, home equity loans? They're called HELOCs, H-E-L-O-C. So people may take those out for a variety of reasons. Some of them good. You need to do renovations on the house, things like that. But if you have that, mortgage insurance isn't going to cover that, because your mortgage insurance was set up to cover the primary mortgage. Okay? And so I have had clients who left a mortgage-free property to adult children, and the property was still lost because no one would pay the taxes.
Oh,
Or
You
the
see?
insurance. Or
So
the taxes.
if you don't do that, if you don't get the taxes paid,
so
you're still going to lose the house.
Or the HOAs.
Well,
If you have
depending, right?
HOA.
You're going to have HOA fees. If you have a house, you're going to have HOA fees if you own a condo, and you leave that. So it's not just that primary thing. It's all the tails that come with it, which is why I love the idea of you having a notebook that you just write down what you're thinking, your brainstorming pages, and always writing your questions. There truly are no stupid questions. You having a question that other people have had the same question. So far, you have not asked me one thing that other people haven't asked, and that's why it's good. It's good because we need to get this information out to our community. Now, it's not mine to make people do anything, of course not. But I feel like my calling is to expose you to the information.
Get you thinking
That's
about it.
my part for you to consider it. So maybe the next time you're in conversation with someone and someone says something about, oh, I'm thinking about getting some life insurance, you can just, oh, you know what? When we were listening to that Laura, she said we have to make sure we don't put kids as the beneficiary. You know, just something to prompt someone to go do further investigation. That's my task. That's what I want, is to open up the communications that we have. And the beauty of talking in our community, I don't care if I'm doing a presentation to 10 people or 1,000 people, I know we're going to share. So it's always multiplied to others. And that's the good thing, you know.
And that goes to this next question. How many families end up losing money simply because they didn't have a plan?
See, that's a real problem, because it's not, they lose money because the house, let's stick to the house for a minute. If you have a home and you don't have a plan, and you do have a mortgage, but the house would sell for more than the mortgage, so there would still be some money left. Okay? Who is that money supposed to go to? Back to what the court's going to decide, and it's going to go to whoever are the so-called legal heirs. But you may have some debts. Debts are going to be paid. If you have, here's the thing, if you don't have any assets, then there's no debts. The debts can't be paid because you don't have anything to pay them with. So we call that a no asset estate. There's nothing. Okay? But if you have assets, and if you have a home, and the value of that home is greater than the mortgage, then that leaves you with an asset, right? It leaves you with funds. And so then the creditors get to make a claim. They don't all get paid. I'm not saying they all get paid, but they all get to file a claim against the estate. And they file their claim, they have to get paid. If it's a legitimate debt that you owed, then
they can garnish if they really want to get something.
No, it's not considered a garnishment at that point. A garnishment is only the term used when someone has a judgment against you and they're going to take your wages. They're going to garnish your wages, or like the IRS can garnish your wages, like that. But when you pass, what they do, they file the claim, and the person who's in charge of your estate gets to look at the claims and say, this one's valid, this one's not. And then they make that decision. Creditors can protest, and of course they do. Most of the creditors will negotiate. They'll negotiate down.
Some crunching numbers again.
They want to get something.
What is the cost of that?
The cost of
everything that you're saying would have to be modified or added.
Well, I'm sorry. Back up to the estate plan. When I said that I think you could navigate those first three, okay, I think you can find someone and stay under $600. I do. Okay. I do. You just have to ask around. And the Metro Volunteer Lawyers, they have attorneys. We take clients on a sliding scale. Okay. So some people can qualify for legal aid, but above that are attorneys who take clients on a sliding scale. And you can search on the Colorado Bar Association's website for attorneys, because if we want to, we're listed there. And it tells you whether we take alternative payment arrangements. Some people take payment plans, and some do sliding scale. So there are options.
So it's attainable. It's not like
it's possible. It's possible. And remember, and I hate to keep going back to this, if you just set aside some of what we spend on discretionary things
every day.
Right. If we just set aside a little bit each time, we could afford it.
Like instead of going to eat out, go cook at home.
Right. And put that money aside.
Yes.
But you have to be dedicated to put it aside, because you're working towards a goal. You're working towards this purpose. And if that purpose matters to you, does that purpose matter to you more than going out to dinner at the same place you went to a little bit ago? And that's like when we talk about the impediments, the things that are stopping some of us from building generational wealth before we even get there. Before you can focus on that, I'm so glad you asked that question about when you don't have anything. There are still things you can be working on to be ready, to be pre-positioned, sort of like exercising before you're going to do a 5K run. You need to do things like checking your insurance. Do you have adequate insurance that's going to prevent you from losing much of what you do have, or are you at risk? When Colorado changed from no fault to this foolishness that we have now, and they sold everyone a bill of goods, in my opinion, saying, well, you can just get med pay and you don't need much med pay, and so it's low. Okay, most people only have $5,000 in med pay in this state. Well, that's problematic, because that med pay is what your insurance company is agreeing to pay out to someone else that you injured. Now, you know, that person that was injured could be the person that was a passenger in your car. Because they could be injured and they don't have health insurance. How many of us ask the people who we give rides to, other than me, do you have health insurance? No, we don't ask them that. We just give them rides. And then you have a car wreck and they get hurt. And they don't have health insurance, but they really are hurt. So they got to go to doctors, they got to get treated, all that. That $5,000 is not good. The ambulance ride getting to the hospital.
That's it right there.
That's it. Because, I mean, I just went through this. And that's it, okay? So, but let's say you have $5,000 med pay, but their medical bills are $100,000, which isn't unrealistic.
It's not.
You know, the first day that I was in the hospital when we had our car accident, June 16th, 2024, it was Father's Day. The first day's bill at UCH was $85,000. Okay, that's obscene. That we live in a country that we don't have a healthcare system. We have a for-profit health industry. That's what we have. Now, in my case, I was fortunate. I don't say fortunate. I was blessed. I am blessed because I managed, despite their best efforts, to stay in the military for 25 and a half years. So my health insurance is covered. Okay? But most people didn't do that, and you shouldn't have to do that.
Right.
Okay? So that's one thing. So your friend who was injured, now they got this bill. They don't have any money. They don't have any health insurance, right?
They can sue you.
So they have no choice but to sue you, because your insurance company is only liable for the amount of your insurance policy. They're not liable for anything else. Why should they be? That's not part of the contract.
So I thought that medical bills on like I've had that situation happen. So I've had some friends who incurred bills and whatnot, but it's just something about it being on your reporting it on your
Car insurance?
no, on
No, I
your
was getting ready to
your
get to
number.
that on your credit report.
Yeah, so something about it that they can't report it or something like that. It could just
Okay.
go unnoticed
Well, but
until
see-
7 years
Isn't that
come and
under-
it drops.
No.
If it's under $1,000?
No, I hate to break that bubble.
Sorry, I'm not just
No, what you said was true because Colorado specifically passed a law that said for residents of Colorado, medical debt cannot be reported on people's credit reports. And for some time, it wasn't, okay? But this administration, because their donors are these people, have changed that. And they are flipping it back to, oh yes, it can be reported. Now Colorado is fighting that, as some other states are. So that was another piece that's right here in the foundational part. Preparation is, do you have adequate insurance? So that's for your car. You have uninsured motorists, yes, but that's if you get hit by someone who's uninsured. We're still not dealing with the fact that now your friend passenger has to sue you. And if they sue you, they're coming for your assets because that's all you got, right? You won't be friends anymore, but what are they going to do? They have to get the care that they received has to be paid, okay? So we're not reviewing our insurance policies. We accepted them saying you only need this amount. Insurance is all about calculating how much risk can you afford. How much can you afford to lose? It's a risk decision. If you don't have much to risk, then maybe you don't need as much car insurance. But many people do have something to risk, to lose. And if you have something to lose, you may want to think about doing an in-depth review of your insurance policy. That's just your automobile insurance policy. If you have the house, you got your homeowner's insurance, and you got your personal property insurance. That's everything that's inside your house. And so my caution there is most people, again, settled and said, okay, I've got homeowner's insurance and I've got personal property insurance. But you need to be certain that your personal property insurance is replacement cost coverage, actual cash value, or else everything in your house is going to get rated on depreciated scales. Well, you know you cannot refurnish your house with depreciated, like going to thrift store.
Right.
You can't do that. So you have to make sure that your policy, and that's easy because it's on your policy, so you can go look and see if you are actually paying for replacement cost coverage in actual cash value. So that means whatever it costs, in the fine print, whatever it costs to replace your property is what they have to pay. You see, that's a big difference. And most people, if I ask them that question, they don't know. They don't know automatically what their coverage is. Now, of course, if you're renting, you must please have renter's insurance. Every time I see a fire or something that's happened in an apartment complex, my heart breaks because you know the Red Cross is there that night, but I hurt for the people who I know don't have renter's insurance. And that means they can't replace anything.
Well, sometimes they make it mandatory.
Now, that's one of the good things. Now it is being more of a requirement in certain leases. In fact, they're having to put it in bold letters that you are advised to get renter's insurance because people thought, well, the landlord's got that covered. No, the landlord is covering the structure. They're covering their stuff. They're not covering your stuff. And now how do you prove what you have? Now it's easier than it used to be because we all have phones.
Right.
You can simply walk through every room and talk your way through describing what you have, when you got it, what the value was. For some big ticket things, you might actually still have receipts, but you need at least some sort of documentation of what you have to show to support your claim. Okay, it makes a big difference. Now, how many do you think in our community have an in-home office or working from home?
I sometimes work from home.
Some space,
I
right?
do.
Yeah.
Some dedicated space. Years and years ago, right after my husband died, I had a fire. It was a kitchen fire. And I got the flames out only because I tell you, I was channeling him. I could hear his voice. That this fire is not going to take our house. I heard it as clear as I'm sitting here talking to you. And so I managed to focus and get the fire out. And we did have an alarm system, so it had gone off, and I knew the fire department was on the way. I also knew I needed to get to the front door because I didn't want to break down my house just to get to the kitchen. But the microwave melted under, the fire was in the teapot on the stove. And so it went up to the bottom of the microwave. And it melted, and there were little black dots, plastic, because it was a plastic bottom microwave, all over my house. It had gone in the air ducts, so it was in every cabinet, all the kitchen cabinets. It was upstairs in all the clothes, everything, because I do have good insurance. Everything went to the cleaners. They hired people to come in and wash every dish and do all that kind of stuff. I'm not kidding. It was a mess. They had to redo the wooden floor because they had to pull out the daggone stove to make sure there was nothing behind it. I learned from the fire department that they put those cheap microwaves in houses. So now I have a microwave with a stainless steel bottom. But I also don't put a teapot on the stove anymore. I only use electric teapot. So I'm not having that one.
Wow.
But my point is, when the adjuster came and they walked through the house, I have an office upstairs and one downstairs, right? When they got to the office, the first thing he said was, oh, because it's clearly an office. It's not a half bedroom and anything. It's a dedicated room that's just, right, it's a dedicated room that's an office. He said, well, insurance won't cover that unless you have the additional rider. And I said, oh, I have it. Which meant I had told USAA that I have an office in this home, and this is what's in it, and it's separate. And so it was covered. But if I hadn't, they would have covered everything except any of the cleaning or anything in that room.
Wow.
You see? But we don't think about that. Well, how are we going to think about it? We don't even know. We don't even know that's a thing. Okay? So you haven't checked your insurance, and you can't get to generational wealth when you don't have good credit. If you don't have good credit scores were never intended to be used the way they are.
Right.
Well, they use it for
Never.
insurance
Now it's for everything. Okay?
Which is another means of blocking.
And that's another way to block you out, because they use these zip codes to determine whether you're a risk. You see, auto insurers do that, and they get away with it in Colorado.
Yep, if you're in a high crime
Certain
area,
zip
your
codes.
insurance go up. And if it's a low
Then it goes.
crime area,
Then you have a
goes
different
down.
rate.
Yep.
But most of us don't check our credit report, and we can do it for free. And it's not freecreditreport.com. The reason they have that name is because while the consumer attorneys were working to get access for us to have free credit reports, they bought the domain name, which is why the actual one to use is annualcreditreport.com.
Okay. I'll write
And
that
then you can get your report from all of the three big ones, which is TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. There are smaller ones, but those are the main three. And you can't really tell where your creditor is going to report. They used to be clearly designated regionally, TransUnion on the East Coast, Experian in the middle, Equifax there on the West Coast, because Experian Equifax is right there in Texas. But now you don't know. It's up to the creditor, which is why you may have more than one credit score. Okay? But most important for you is to get a copy of that report so you can see how many errors are on it. Because 5 out of 7 credit reports have errors. And some of those errors are serious enough to cost you employment or a chance to get an apartment, another place to live. So you get a copy of each credit report and you look at it. And I recommend you print it out some kind of way, because you can't really see all that stuff online. Most people can't. All right.
Because we talking. If you're talking to the younger generation, they're not printing nothing.
But even if they're not going to print it, they can screenshot. They can screenshot, so they are then able to go through it. But it's the errors that will cost you, because they'll be impacting your credit score and you don't even know it. They've got wrong addresses on there. They've got names. They've got names that are not you. You know, they have mixed credit reports all over the place. Okay, but you can't really get to building your wealth or advancing your family's goals only to find out that you can't get the kind of bank account you want because you don't have good credit.
Yep.
You can't help
sword.
You can't help your child get an apartment. First,
I wouldn't.
Please, no. I was getting ready to say, first, please don't co-sign for anyone.
I don't co-sign.
No,
for
I meant you can't help your child get an apartment if you haven't taught your child what good credit means.
To help themselves.
Okay, right. When I went home after my mom died, my niece and nephew were living with my mom. So now I'm tasked with getting them into a place to live. That's all. Not paying for it, but helping them to get settled, because they lived with mother their whole lives. In the process, we're finding, I've got a nice realtor, we're finding wonderful places, and we're not getting in. Unbeknownst to me, their credit was toast. For simple things like didn't pay this phone bill, and so they switched to another carrier. And why these carriers let them jump, I don't know. But ultimately, that was the reason. Now, fortunately, my mother's village had a person who managed a place and agreed to bypass that part, and so that's where they're living now, while they work on straightening out their credit. They learned the hard way that they could not get the kind of place that they needed, the space, or wanted, because of those decisions that they made about walking away from something.
Yep. That's most.
And that's a lot of young people, but they don't know, if they're still living at home, they don't know that's going to prevent them from getting an apartment. She didn't know. She never thought in a million years that was going to impact her not being able to get an apartment, but it did. And so now she's got to spend the time and the discipline to pull herself out of that so they can move into something different. So when we're talking about generational wealth, we want to help that next generation help themselves. And we can't do it, one, if we've never checked our credit report, and if we haven't taught them that they need to check theirs. And we need to have our children start checking their credit report at 18, even if they don't have any financial accounts. Why? Because many people have had their credit hijacked by a family member.
Yep.
A family member who gained access to their social security number and opened up accounts. Yep. Sadly, sometimes it's parents who didn't want to have to pay a deposit for utilities when they moved, and so they use that child's information, and that is a nightmare to clear up. The reason why it's hard for us to clear up intra-family misuse is because the first thing you got to do is file a police report. Most of us aren't going to file a report. We're not going to file a report on our own family. Most of us don't do that.
See, and before we get too far ahead, I want a disclaimer. Back to if I have a friend and you're in the car with me and you think you're going to sue me and I'm giving you a ride, if you're my friend, I wish you would. I wish you would take me to court.
Oh, hold on.
Sorry.
I'm going to close my ears and pretend that I did not hear that threat that just emanated from one of the people sitting at this table.
Which one
and it
of my
wasn't
friends
me.
would? If I'm
can't
giving
say
you a
that.
ride to
Well,
the store
it's
and we
not
get an
really
accident,
that. I mean, they
wish
don't have a
you
choice.
would.
They have to get their care.
No, they can get their care and just let that
How
get
they
their
gonna
credit
get their
and call
care?
it. I don't know.
That's not possible.
Just
That's
come
the
to the house
problem.
and I'll bandage you up or something. I don't know.
Okay, with that being
Okay, so now moving on.
why do we think that trust funds and estate plannings aren't talked about much in the Black community? And isn't it true that a lot of people don't realize they're already building wealth through things like home ownership, life insurance, retirement accounts, or a business?
I think it's not talked about in our communities because we don't have people willing to share information about it. You know, we don't have. I think about being a lawyer. I think about lawyers as being people who have the keys to the kingdom of this kind of information. And unless and until more of us are willing to share information with our community, outside of when someone becomes your client, I think that leads to the lack of information. It's one of the reasons why I knew when I came out of law school, this is what I was going to do. Because I've always believed that you have an obligation. If God gives you a gift, you best be about sharing it and helping people. So I think we aren't aware of it because, again, you've never experienced it. No one's raised the topic to you. So you can't even consider it. And we think, okay, we have a home, which is the primary source of building generational wealth. But then we have this home, and we've not made any plans or thought about what we want to happen to the house when something happens to us. We haven't made sure that that insurance is payable to in the correct way to the correct beneficiary. You'll see many times when people pass away, then you remember when everybody is at the mortuary signing over the life insurance policy, so that can be used for the person's burial, and then that leaves nothing else.
Wow.
Right, because it's used for the burial. So that's another reason. Businesses, this one really breaks my heart because we are the creators of the majority of new businesses. The problem is we're not building them correctly and we're not protecting them. The numbers of people I have who say to me, well, yes, TA, I own my own business, and okay, and I'm really proud of you and I'm happy for you. But it takes more than just going on the website to the Secretary of State and filling out the form that says you have an LLC, which is a limited liability company. You pay your money. They print out a form. It says you're an LLC in good standing. And you walk away and you think, I'm good, I have a business. What you have is a piece of paper. I'm so sorry to tell you, you have a piece of paper. Think about a corporation. A corporation is run by rules, right? Bylaws. And all of us know that. Corporations have bylaws. LLCs don't have bylaws because they're a different legal entity. They're for people who just need limited exposure and don't need all the big formalities of a corporation. Right. You're right. You have different levels. You can have an S corp, and then you can have a standard corporation. But with the LLC, and it tells you this on the site, people just don't read that part. You need to then create what's called an operating agreement. How's this business going to be run? How's it going to be run? How's it going to be managed? Who's going to manage it? You have options. Is it managed by the members of the business or is it managed by the manager of the business? So you create this business, but you don't have any of the rules in place, which is why when someone passes, that business is just gone because there were no rules. You weren't managing that like a business, which even before someone passes can cost you, and this does impact us. This can cost you because you have a business, but you're not treating it like a business. I have often had to tell people, you've got to have 2 separate accounts. You have to have separate financial accounts. Because if you don't have a business account, just like me, I can't put client money in my personal account. Lawyers, we have to go through extra steps, man. It's like, I have to put it over here in the trust account, and then I have to transfer it to my professional account before I can even think about moving it to my account. But when you don't, and there's a problem, and a creditor, lots of creditors when you have businesses, and they want to come after you, you've done what's called commingling. You've put all the money together. If you put all the money together, that means you didn't really have a business. For corporations, it's called the creditor can pierce the veil between the two. Okay, it's like a curtain. But when you don't follow the rules, they can come right through that curtain and get assets. Now, think about it. If you have a small business, you have just put all of everything you have is exposed. Everything. Because if someone has a judgment against you for something, what's the first thing we do when we have a judgment? We search for assets. I'm going to search for assets. I'm going to find your bank accounts. I'm going to find that you have a home. I'm going to find that you have a car.
Wow.
I'm going to find out everything. And so then I'm going to look for ways to begin to enforce my judgment. What's the easiest way? I don't know. Maybe I put a lien against your house. You know, maybe.
That's why I keep my business separate from my personal.
Well,
I have my
it has
personal
to
account,
be, or it's not a business.
and all
That's
my
the reason,
businesses have their own tax ID number
Right.
and their own bank account.
And
So,
that's the other thing I was
and
going to
that's
say.
if I like my products, they have their own account. My salon has their own account, and I have my school has their own account. My it's just everything that I do has their own account
And this is
and their
back
own
to
tax ID number, so it
making-
could stay away from my personal stuff.
This is back to making that image I was talking about, where you're writing everything down. When you're creating your dream business like you've done, everything is separate, just like the fingers. Everything is separate and everything must be legally protected. And if you toss all that money in, then a creditor can come in. If you haven't created an LLC with some rules, if you haven't created it with some rules, then how's it going to get passed down to anyone? Because there's no rules to say what's supposed to happen to this business when you die. There's no rules.
I've had that hard conversation with my kids. I got it in writing and everything, so everybody knows what's going to who and why it's going to them. So there's no, well, mom didn't say that. Mom got it in writing, and I talked to y'all about it.
This is why the documentation matters, and I think this is easily something we can overcome, because we do have meetings, we do have reunions, we do have those things. Those are the times to think about and have these discussions. Now, you do not have to give an explanation or even tell other people about your estate plans or anything. Now, you do need to make sure that your agents under your power of attorney know that you have appointed them, because they may not be willing to be an agent. I've had that happen. Okay. You do need to tell the person that you've appointed to be the guardian of your child. When you have a will, the person in charge is called the personal representative. You have to tell that person that you want them to assume this responsibility. I mean, you don't have to show anybody your documents, because the documents can change. And sometimes there are problems because you've shown somebody a will that says this is how you want to distribute your assets, but you changed your mind. But they're still holding on to this. So that part doesn't need to go to anybody. You know, now when I say personal representative, many people are still thinking of the term executor. Okay, but many states have changed now, and Colorado is one of them, and we call that person a personal representative that takes care of your estate. They do the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, they do the same thing. There's no difference. I sometimes say that we make up more words so we can charge more. I don't know if that's true or not. But if you're thinking about generational wealth, see, even these little basics that we've touched on about insurance and bank accounts, that all flows into it. And it explains why we don't have it, because we don't know that. Now, do people really think when they go online and create that business that they have an actual business? I think some of them do. And how do they know that they need to have separate accounts? That doesn't say that on the website, because the website isn't giving legal advice. It's not. So how do they know that?
But if they go get a tax ID number,
Well, that's what I was going to say. Many of them
it does
don't
tell
have,
you.
but many people's businesses, they don't have a tax ID number.
That's true.
That's been one of my biggest issues. They don't go and get an employee identification number, and then that's worse because they're putting their
EIN
social
number.
security number down on everything. And once you're putting your social security number down, you're making yourself
Vulnerable to
vulnerable
everything.
for every
I
possible
think most
attack.
people know nowadays not to do that.
Well,
That's why.
back to your friend Chat GPT.
Kiana. Kiana.
Okay, maybe there's a new one. What is it? It's by us for us. I just got it the other day.
Is it bias for us?
Yes. Begins with an A. Oh my
knows?
gosh.
Somebody put it in there.
Yeah, I just got an email the other day
Excited
saying
about
that it was active. But anyway.
I love Catalina.
That wasn't it. But anyway,
That's ChatGPT. That's just
I
her
know.
name.
Just made it into a nice little one of us. But the thing is, that's the education component that has to come in that you need to do before you decide you're going to start a business. See, that's a responsibility on us. If I'm going to start a business, I need to find out what's necessary to start a business. I mean, you can even find information on how to start a business on a shoestring, because there's so much information out there now. And at a minimum, you must know you need the business to have some sort of legal entity, which is a limited liability company in most cases. You need it to have rules, which under an LLC is called an operating agreement. How is it going to operate? What's your business plan? What are you going to do with this business? And you need to have that tax ID number. Another reason why businesses fail, people aren't paying taxes.
Right.
They're not paying taxes.
That's challenging too, though,
And that's huge, because you hear some of these celebrities, they owe $5 million in taxes. Now, when you owe that kind of money, that's criminal because the amount's so high.
Yeah.
That's different. Tax evasion and tax avoidance, those are different things.
Is it? I thought it was
But
Yeah,
either
'cause
way,
I just found out two celebrities that are married together, both of them, and they sell hair care products, and they're having tax issues and money issues and stuff like that.
Oh.
well, that's
And their brand is really known name. So I was like, what?
because some people think, I believe, one of the things we're not doing, and it was surprising to me when I found out, we're not using a village of experts. You see, we think it's my business and we're doing it all. But you don't know it all. And your business can be doing really well, but you're not a tax expert. You're not a legal expert. Now, you don't even have to come to a lawyer regularly, but maybe, this is how I approach legal wellness, maybe just like going to the doctor, you can do it annually. See, when I started legal wellness, it was with that idea to see how legally healthy you are. Because we're unhealthy in so many areas. And so if you're unhealthy in the areas we're talking about, then you come and you get a checkup. And what happens when they give you a checkup and they say, oh, you have high blood pressure? Then they tell you what you can do about it, right? Diet, medication. And so if you don't have any of your insurance, right, I can say you really need to work on these kind of things. You don't need to see me every day or anything like that. These are just, it's like homework. You can schedule things out, which back to the cost factor.
Because that's
just,
all that's running through my mind.
right, see, but that's what I mean. You can just check things out. You can spread things out, but we don't have a team of experts. When I grew up, we knew who in the community could do this and who could do that, who worked on cars, who did hair, who did everything. But right now, we're going it alone.
Wow.
And we think we know all of it, but we don't. And we think, well, I haven't made a lot of money, so I'm not paying taxes. I can't afford to separate it.
But they don't they don't realize that you still have to pay taxes.
You still
on
have
your
to
money.
pay even a little bit. Whatever you make, you have to report it.
Because even people on Social Security are paying taxes on their money if they
Depending
file
on
taxes.
how much they make overall. So if you don't have a lot of separate income, like my mom was getting just her Social Security and pension. So when I did her taxes, she didn't have to pay any taxes. But I do taxes for some friends, and they still have a well-paying job. And so they go above that limit. And so a portion they have to pay taxes on, you see. So, so it's different for everyone. And while the automated systems, they can save you time and stuff, they all have their disclaimer. They are not responsible. They are not liable for this information that they're giving you. But I think we just don't know, back to your question, I think we're not exposed to the information.
Yeah.
I think some of that is on professional advisors who don't share outside of running the clock, and it's on us for not educating ourselves. You can't call me and ask a question if you don't even know it's a question.
That's true.
But after we've had this conversation, now you can think like you just made that comment about the people you give rides to. So now people can maybe think that I should look at my insurance policy and see exactly what I have.
True.
You see, so that's the goal of the education, is to prompt some kind of change.
Yeah.
You know?
To get people thinking.
Right. Right.
And it's not always expensive, which means that it would be out of your price range.
Right. Everything is
there
not
are
out.
things you can do that are affordable, that
and manageable, and would make a difference and would help protect you and your family. And mostly, it's like you were saying, we don't do it because we just think it's all beyond our reach. Like, back to what I said about single parents. No, it's not, because you can use an insurance policy to put in that bucket.
Yeah.
But before we go any further, we have a commercial break.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Y'all know we keep it real here in the kitchen. And speaking of keeping things fresh, let me tell you about Whipping My Ways Light Lock Refreshener Spray. If your locks, braids, twists, or natural hair need a quick pick-me-up between wash days, this is it. Just a few drops and you're refreshed, hydrated, and ready to go. Available in lavender and rosemary vanilla. Because your crown deserves every day. Okay.
And it's sweet.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you're in your 20s, next question. If you're in your 20s or 30s, why should you care about this conversation right now?
Well, because in your 20s and 30s, that is the best time for you to plan for what you're going to do in your 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s. In fact, one of the reasons that there is such a tremendous wealth gap between the African American community and others is because we're not planning at those early stages. They always show you the graph of a 20-something-year-old starting to invest and getting the benefits of compound interest, and then when they're 65 having $1 million versus someone who starts in their 30s or their 40s or their 50s. And that's why, one, you need to care because you want to build a financial future, if not for other generations, at least for yourself. how long do you want to work? When they do goal setting, you say, what is the goal? Once they've done the brainstorming, they get a goal. And then you look at how much time is it going to take to get to that goal. And that's where you make that plan. That's where some people drop out because they didn't realize, or they have now realized, they're not willing to invest that amount of time because they didn't even know it was going to take that long.
Right.
You know, I've had people say,
when they're late.
right, they're going to go to law school. They want to be a lawyer, but they don't realize you got to get a bachelor's degree. Then you got to go to law school. Then you know, so that's right there. That's 7+ years out your life. Are you really going to do that? And some say no, and I say that's good, because the sooner you realize what you don't want to do, the quicker we can narrow in on what you do want to do. So most 20 and 30-year-olds, they have something. Back to what we said earlier, they have vehicles, they have some property. Some of them have a lot more property than people think, you know. And even they have to decide, think about what's going to happen to my stuff. You know, my grandson's a collector of a lot of different things. In terms of, he's a creator. And and he is a comic artist. So he's a lot of things in that area. And we've talked about it. There are certain things he wants to go to different friends. Okay? But if we didn't talk about it, I wouldn't know that he wants this friend to have this part and this friend to have this part. But the minute he turned 18, we had documents. We had a financial power of attorney. We had a medical power of attorney. We had it because I needed to get...
So what is that about when we don't want to talk about it?
Well, first of all, I think we don't to admit that we are mortal. We don't want to face the fact that we're going to die, which is very strange for black people who believe in the Lord.
Right.
You know, that part is strange, but we don't talk about it. And that also comes from way back, where we just don't talk about things. We didn't talk about anything. What stay, you know, what you hear here stays here, what happens here stays here, which led to a lot of other problems
Still.
for us and in our communities, and harm to people who were abused under those circumstances. And everyone knew that it was Uncle Charlie, but no one would talk about it.
To this day.
Okay, so I think a lot of it has to do, we don't want to face our mortality. And we're not sure what's going to happen to our stuff. We're not sure who is going to take care of their stuff. It's back to when I said doing your individual brainstorming is important, but having those family collective meetings are important. Because when I'm having people choose or tell me who's going to be their agents under their powers of attorney or personal representative, any of those, we know our families. We may not want to be honest about our families. So you know, and this is the case with many of my seniors, they feel as though they're obligated to include their children in the decision making. Well, that's not necessarily true. If you know that your child has burned through their money and your money, why would you make them your agent under your financial power of attorney?
You wouldn't.
You shouldn't, but they do.
Yeah, I know.
Because they want to split things between two kids. Well, I want this kid to be on this power of attorney, and I want this one to be on that because I want them both to be included. Okay? So I have learned over the years to help them navigate to where we can say, we're leaving the person away from the primary responsibility, but we're recognizing them. So we can use language like, this child is going to be the primary decision maker for my finances. However, it's important to me that they consult and discuss these issues with their other siblings, and leave it at that. So they're not appointed, they don't have a role. You're just going to talk to them. Your agent is just going to talk to them. So, because if I don't help them navigate the emotional piece, we're going nowhere. You see?
Right. And usually there's a lot of bickering and
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's another way that 20 and 30-year-olds need to be prepared, because most of them need to think about things like, have I talked to my parents about the fact that I don't want the house?
right.
When the parents are over here thinking they're going to leave the house to the kid. But most of these young people, they don't live the same way,
Right.
you know. But the parents thinking that that's a good thing,
I
right?
can't afford to.
I'm going to give the house to my kid.
Okay, so what about this? What's one thing young people can start doing today to build a legacy instead of just living paycheck to paycheck? And what are some mistakes young people make that can hurt their family's future wealth?
One of the first things they can do is look at how much money they are bringing in, even if it's a small amount, and start setting aside money for an emergency fund. You don't have to pay attention as much to the information that's out there that says you need to have 6 months or you need to have a year. That makes people have nothing. They don't even start an emergency fund because they know they don't have 6 months of money to set aside. So if
That
you can
part.
set aside $25 this month, set aside $25 in an account that you're not touching. And then maybe $25 the next month. And then maybe you can do $50 one month. But if they don't first start an emergency fund, living paycheck to paycheck is going to wind them up at the doors of the payday lenders.
Yep, and what I started doing is, well, I've been doing it, is say I have a $20 bill and I break the $20 bill, even if it's $3. I take all the fives, all the ones, and all the change and put them in a jar.
A lot
The
of
deep
people
rock.
do that.
And if you
It
think
adds up.
it
It
adds up
starts to
really
add up.
fast, because after a while you're going to be like,
Wow, there's a couple $100 over there.
but you got to be dedicated not to go in there and start
Right.
turning it over
Right.
and trying to get some tweezers and
What
squeeze.
do you do when you get it?
Well,
I
eventually,
just keep it.
the goal is to use it, and I wouldn't just
Like for a
hold
house?
on to it. I would, say I'm going to tell myself every 3 months or whatever time period, I'm going to take that money out and I'm going to put that money in the bank. Or I'm going to add that money to one of my investment accounts or my
Thank
savings
you.
accounts. You see, that's what I'm going to do with
That's what I
it.
was asking.
I've been saving, still saving.
Yeah,
it.
because
Just keep money under a mattress.
the thing
put it
that
in the
our young
mattress,
people, especially
I don't do that because
Same thing. We all most
that's
people
that's
are-
old
Right.
school. I like my mattress. I ain't cutting nothing up.
when we are talking about the young people, the first thing they could do is start trying to protect themselves, which is with an emergency fund. Most young people also have some type of need for insurance, even if they don't have a car. If they're renting, we're back to that renter's insurance that they need to have to protect the possessions that they do have, right? They need to have discussions with their parents about what are your plans for when you pass away, because I want to make sure that we're on the same page, because the kid knows they don't want the house. And that needs to be clear so that the parents can make a different plan. They may choose to have the house sold and give the money to the kid. We don't know. But what the parents are thinking about, let's keep the house in the family, where the child has no intention of keeping the house. And my grandson, he understands my conversations about real estate being a good investment, but he doesn't want a house. He did when he was young. Now that he's seen how much of a money pit it is, now he doesn't want one. But we've talked about you can still have rental property. You can have rental property, and then yes, you have to hire a property manager to take care of it. But that's
Which is a
one
part
of
wealth
the
building.
But that's building wealth. You have your savings, you have your investments, and if you have a position that has a decent 401k, you have those 3 prongs. What 20 and 30-year-olds cannot do is spend 1 minute thinking about Social Security. That's off the table for them. Even if there should be enough changes that they could get some, that ought not to be one of the prongs of their planning.
Ooh,
Okay,
I hope y'all hear this.
yeah, they just can't. You have to do it with, has to be your savings, your investments, fully matching your 401k as much as you can. Your investments, of course, can include things like the stock market, and your investments also can include your real estate.
So 20 and 30-year-olds nowadays should not be looking to get anything when they get 68,
65 from, right, whatever they're, 67, 68 from.
They make it to that age.
Yeah, they should not
They
plan
shouldn't be
now
looking for
on
nothing.
Social Security. I would not do that, and I wouldn't advise that, because we see the shaky position that the Social Security Trust Fund is in. If they don't do something to shore it up, they're already projected to have to reduce benefit payments.
In 2032.
2032. Not stopping them, but reducing the percentage. That's a serious issue for our people, because the majority depend on Social Security to provide over 90% of their income.
And what's so funny, it's not even funny. Most people are getting, I'll just say $1,500. And then when you get Medicare, taking out $200 to $300 of your
It
check,
reduces it.
it reduces it. So now,
That's right.
when
Now
that,
you're
and
getting
in
$1,200.
2032,
You
when they
might,
reduce it,
your
that-
$1,500
that-
might go down to $1,300, $200, $200.
but they still
And
taking
then
out that
you're gonna have your
Medicare,
Medicare.
that's still going up, and Medicare's going up, but they
That's
pay for
crazy to
less.
That's exactly right.
They pay for less.
So-
They used to pay for a whole lot more cheaper,
Than they did now.
and then now it's gone up. They pay for a lot less.
And that's,
So-
that's primarily that political decision
I
to
think
push
so.
Medicare Advantage programs at people.
So with that being said, we've seen a bunch of families fall apart after someone dies. How often does it happen because there wasn't a plan in place? And what situation have you seen where a family said, I wish I had done this sooner?
Almost all of the times that a person passes and there's no plan, then I get calls from other family members, because now they realize the impact. And that's the worst possible time, because when a person passes without a plan, we're not just talking about the paperwork plan or how they want to be buried. We're talking about who's going to pay for them to be buried. We're back to when I was growing up, it was pass the hat, right, among the family members to collect the money. Now, the default, what a shame that the default is GoFundMe.
And it is.
I can see using GoFundMe when you've lost a child to a tragedy, because that's totally not something anyone is planning for. But we're talking about our seniors who are passing and there's no plan. Some of that is happening because they have had life insurance for a considerable amount of time, but life insurance can phase out when they get a certain age, and there's no more value to it.
Yeah.
I have visited with clients who showed me 5 or 6 insurance policies thinking that they still had this coverage, and they did not. You see, but when we don't have conversations, this is why I think in our family, we have family meetings. You know, and any topic, nothing is off the table, because we have to know how everybody is thinking, because everyone's in different positions. Some people are doing fine. Some people are on public benefits. We have to make sure that we all understand that, and looking first at our elders, who's going to be positioned to help them, and then looking at our young people, who's going to be positioned to bring them on when they lose people, when we've lost people. You see?
Yeah, hold on, let me interject and put my last bit in
Okay.
for our last commercial.
It's not our last. We still got
Oh,
one more.
got
But
one more
I know you have a client.
Yep.
So
I'll be disappearing shortly. I have to leave prematurely, so this is a product I've created. It is called Relied On. The purpose of this oil is a pre-shampoo oil. Uh-oh. I was gonna try to read my script, but I'm just gonna go off the top of my head. This oil softens knots and tangles. If you have thick hair, right when you take your braids down, before you comb it, before you do anything, if you run Relied through your scalp and through your hair, and then apply a light blow dryer, it will detangle your hair before you shampoo it. So it is very critical that you use this product before you shampoo your hair, because you might take your braids down and comb it and think that you're good to wash, and you wash it and then it's so incredibly tangled, and that's because of the weak state that it's in from you having it in braids for 3 weeks to 5-6 weeks. So this oil, again, Relied On, it soothes, it conditions, and it softens your hair before you shampoo it. So you can go to, our links will be on our websites and stuff. You can go to either, it's going to be on Angela's page or my page by connecting to hers, and you'll be able to find this so you can purchase.
That sounds
Thank
good.
you. Now,
Thank you.
breaking the cycle. When you look at families that successfully built generational wealth, what are they doing differently, and do you think financial education is just as important as making money?
I actually think I'm going to take the back end of that question first. The financial education is more important than making the money. Because if we don't have the financial education, we won't be able to keep the money that we do make. And that's been, it's very evident across different levels of our socioeconomic status.
Great.
And that leads to the family, the successful families that I have been exposed to are families where everybody's on the same page. They have had these family meetings. They know what the plan is. They don't have to have seen all of mom or dad's documents, but they know that the plan is for the house to go to this person. The plan is for things to be sold to go into a trust to fund education for the grandchildren. They know the parameters. So there's no false expectation that, oh, when mom or dad dies, I'm going to get this lump sum of money and I'm going to be able to do whatever I want with it, because no, the family has discussed that the goal is to provide for education for the young set, to make sure that they can get through. Because one of the other areas that contribute to this outrageous wealth gap is the burden of student loan debt. And that's because we have not been in a position to be able to get our children through college without the support of loans.
Right.
And so the families that I've had great success, I didn't create the success. This family had already built the foundations because they were talking to each other. They understood who was weak in this area, who had this strength. I'm good at the caring, but I'm good at managing the money. Who was going to do this part? We cannot ignore who our family is. Just like we can't ignore who we are. We know what our strengths and weaknesses are. When you're doing this kind of work, this is the time to be honest, or the plan just simply will not work if we assign tasks to the wrong person. When I have a parent who thinks, well, I want to make sure all the kids are covered. Well, if you leave your house to 5 children individually, you're setting up a disaster. Because if the house is supposed to be kept in the family, but one person says, I need the money, I want to sell my share. Well, how are they going to do that? Are you going to be able to sell your share to someone who's not even in the family?
Right.
Are the other family members going to be able to afford to buy you out? They may or may not be able to do that. This is a big problem when I have family members here, seniors especially, who have land in other states. And so the land went to all of them. Well, but then the person who owns the middle parcel of the 5 parcels decides to sell to a developer. So now you got 2 on the end and 2 on the end, and the developer owns this part. Then another person on the other end decides to sell to a developer. So now you got this mix, right? In certain states, that developer can go to court and say that the way this is split up is impinging upon their ability to develop their land, therefore they've got a decrease in value. And in certain states like Arkansas and several others, you can be forced to do what the court will do, what's called a partition. And you can be forced to sell that property or do something different with it, because unfortunately many places where we're leaving land to our family members, they're not going back there. The kids aren't going back there. They're not going to live in those places.
She's looking at. This is
Okay,
wonderful,
next
everyone.
commercial. Listen, healthy hair starts with the scalp. That's why I love Whipping My Way Locks Braids Oil. It's designed to moisturize your scalp, support healthy hair growth, and strengthen your strands. I especially recommend you use it after the fresh cleanse to the lock and moisture. Whether your hair wear locks, braids, or natural hair, this oil belongs on your routine. This is good oil. It also helps your edges grow. It keeps your scalp moisturized and hydrated. So if you need that type of oil, you can go to my website, whippingmyway.com, and it's there for you. So most of our questions have been answered that were supposed to be after this commercial, because we went through the business and everything. So our last question is a closing question, because we've answered a lot. A lot of our listeners are working hard, raising families, and trying to build something. What's your message to a person who wants to leave their children in a better position than they started?
I think the most important thing is to initiate or continue family conversations about what the goals are. Your individual goals and the family's goals, because it needs to work together. And when you define your goals, which I would recommend you do first, how you see things working out for the family, that then you begin the family discussions to do this, because this takes planning. That's the hardest part, but there's so much power in our hands to make a difference. And I would encourage us to not get discouraged by looking at numbers about how big the wealth gap is and how it's going to take 100 years to close the wealth gap. We don't need to focus on that. We need to focus on the now. Today is sufficient. We need to look at what can we do to build something in our family that benefits our family and potentially benefits the community as well, because you can leave assets to nonprofits and charities that are near and dear to your heart. But first are the family meetings, because you got to identify the challenges. Minor children, blended families, someone with special needs. Those are the most heartbreaking ones to deal with when we haven't made the plan. So do your brainstorming, write down all of your questions, have that family meeting, get all their questions, go through that list of things that you can answer and move forward with, make a plan and set a timeline for when you're going to do it and when you're going to check back in with each other. And the ones that you can't do are the ones that you seek out advice for, whether it's from a tax advisor or an attorney. You bring experts into your circle that are going to be able to help you achieve your goals, your family's goals, and make a significant difference in the well-being of our communities.
All right. Okay. We thank our guests for being here today. And as always, thank you for pulling up a chair and joining us at the table today. We hope today's conversation gave you something to think about, something to talk about, and maybe even something that inspires you to take action. Knowledge is powerful, but applying it is what changes lives. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, TikTok, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and turn on your notifications. And share and like, and you'll never miss an episode. We'd also love to hear from you, so leave us a comment and let us know topics you would like to discuss next. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having the conversations that matter. This has been No Cameras in the Kitchen, where the conversations are real, the lessons are honest, and everybody leaves the table with something they can use. God bless, and we'll see you next time. Until then, the kitchen is closed, but the conversation continues.